Welcome back, everyone. Mike McConville here, one more time, Stratford, Ontario, Canada, for StringTech Workstations. All of this preparation that you saw in the last 3 videos, this is where it pays off. I have that high density foam, the frets are all in order. This is the first row of frets starting at the top, and then I continue here to the last fret. No guesswork, no backtracking. We're ready to snap them up and go. Let's get started. I'm right-handed, so I'm starting at the top here on the bass side, kind of overlapping my strokes as I go. As I get into this portion of the fingerboard, I kind of tilt that file down about 10 degrees to initially get all of the fret protrusions level. Just about there. This is the scrub block that I send out in your kits. I know you've seen me do this before. I'm going to do a circular motion, kind of clockwise, and then counterclockwise. Now I've got this first grid of paper as a cloth back 400. Nice tough cloth back paper that isn't going to get shredded on those fret ends. Here's our second piece of 400. And now our 600 grit. Well, the last thing I'm doing before I pull out the buffing wheel is with the auger file, just getting whatever sharpness is left on the underside of that crown. Silky smooth. Same deal on this side, twice with the 400. Twice with a 600. Same thing again with the auger file. Load up the buffer. Jeweler's Rouge. Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 high spots on this that we'll need to level. We'll just nick those with that single cut mill file, recrown and polish, and we're on the home stretch with this one. I do want to go over to Ivan's guitar. We are doing these two in tandem because there's a pleasant surprise with that one. So the pleasant surprise with this one is it already is a compound radius. Now it still needs some leveling along its length. There's no way around that, but that's all it needs. So I'm not going to mess with this radius. It's already a compound radius. So all we're doing on this one is I've got my 120 grit, and I'm not changing anything as far as the radius goes, but there were some discrepancies and high spots along the length of the neck on this one that needed to be taken care of. I know it was swooping up on the bottom end here, so there's no way around that. That's got to be taken care of before we put the new frets in. So just giving this a quick brush. You know, when you do pull the frets out, on either side of the saw kerf, the wood will kind of pucker up a little bit. So that needs to be leveled too to get an accurate reading with the straight edges. And I will take that reading in a second. And as I mentioned earlier in one of the previous videos, I did find the sort of sweet spot with this two-way truss rod to get this neck as straight as humanly possible before I did what I just did here, which is leveling along the trajectory of the string path, full length of the neck. So I'll get the straight edge out in a second and have a real close look. So we ended up actually having a little bit of negative tension on that rod to get this to lie exactly where I want it to lie. As per usual, I've got the 10-inch straight edge checking sort of the bottom end of the neck to center, and then the center of the neck itself, and that center to the top end of the neck. And this is laser straight, and that's what we want. So now we'll always have control over where we can set the action. We did not burn through any of that inlay. It all looks great. And we corrected everything that needed to be corrected. Same deal here as we did with the Strat. We've got all our sort of reconnaissance marks on the tape. All the frets are lined up, ready to snap up and go, and we'll drive those frets home tomorrow. So just before we finish up these two guitars, I want to send a shout out to the 4 sort of latest guys that got the GPS units. I realize that you've all got busy shops. So to Mike in Pennsylvania, Scott in Nashville, to Steve in Victoria, Australia, and to Hoon Guitars in South Korea. I thought I would take a second, first of all, to give you a little bit of a history of the origins of this workstation and a couple of business tips to kind of help you along your way. So first of all, I was 42 years old when the first generation of StringTech workstations hit the market. The first show we did was the Guild of American Luthiers convention in Tacoma, Washington. That was 1998. And within an hour of setting up our little table with the very first TechDeck, it's kind of comical when I think about it now, both of the biggest players on the block had approached us within that first hour. And they had essentially said word for word the same thing. We'd like to put this on the front page of our catalog. They were both my new best friends until they realized that the invention was registered with the U.S. Patent Office. Stumac had a thing called the benchtop guitar cradle that they were introducing at the show. When I pulled the blanket off the StringTech, he grabbed the benchtop guitar cradle and hid it under the table. And a little later in the show, Todd Taggart from Luthier's Mercantile came over to talk to me. And same deal. We'll put this on the front page of our catalog, until they found out we had it registered with the patent office. You know, this is so crazy. When Jay saw Todd talking to me, he came over and stood right beside Todd's shoulder. And he didn't say a word. He just wanted to make sure he didn't miss anything that was being discussed. And honestly, this cloak and dagger stuff turned me off completely. And that's why I never did another show until 2015. And as far as those two go, it's been a vacuum of silence ever since. Mind you, Frank Ford did give a positive review of the workstation for LMI, saying, quote, "I've never actually used a device for holding instruments myself, but this really does hold any instrument in any position." I appreciate that, Frank. It meant a lot to me all those years ago. I just went back home, continued my lessons at the college, and I was very happy to sell these workstations to a very appreciative audience, and anyone else who happened to stumble across my blog and send inquiries. And the orders did trickle in from the US, the UK, Canada, and Australia in the beginning. And all further development of the workstations and the accessories was done in consultation with industrial engineers, guitar pro shops, touring techs, students, and customers. The first test run for the 5th generation of workstations started right here in this shop in 2006. At this time I was using 2 of the TechDeck Elite workstations, and these are the workstations that you see in the earlier videos. 2006 was also the year that Long McQuaid, which is Canada's Guitar Center, I suppose, or Canada's largest chain music store, bought the local store and initially kept me on as their guitar repair technician. So the TechDeck Elite model workstations were the workstations that I used in the guitar repair and design curriculum that I designed for the Conestoga College students. We were doing very small production runs of about 30 units at a time to supply the 6 to 8 students per class. I was teaching 4 classes a week, and to supply the gradually increasing global interest in the TechDeck. And during that time I would drop by Long McQuaid each morning, load up 8 to 12 guitars in the back of my Roadmaster station wagon, take them home to my shop a few blocks away, finish them all up, drop them off the next morning, and pick up another batch. And this went on solidly for a year and a half. You have to keep in mind that these repairs were done over and above all the regular repairs that were brought directly to my shop. During the end of this period, the store manager had taken me out to lunch to show his gratitude for the completion of the 1,500 plus repairs I had done up to that point. It was during lunch that Trevor told me the regional manager had been by the week before, so he's looking over all the stats: instrument sales, rentals, sheet music, students. So the funny part is, and this is Trevor telling me this over lunch, when he got to repairs, he stopped, turned to Trevor and said, "What's with the repairs?" And Trevor looks at him and goes, "Well, I don't know, what do you mean?" He said, "How many repair guys do you got?" So Trevor holds up one finger to indicate I was the only guy, right? The regional manager responded, "You realize this guy is doing more than our 3 Toronto stores combined?" That was the greatest endorsement and ultimate testament for the TechDeck ever. It was shortly after that that I got muscled out of the picture. So I was in pretty good shape by then. I had accumulated a contact list of 1,100 names and emails and phone numbers, etc. So between my own shop repairs and the 4 classes a week I was teaching at the college, 6 to 8 students per class, I was busier than ever. So the lesson in this for all of you guys that you're already up and running, you're in business already, but don't put all your eggs in one basket. Keep an extensive contact list and learn to communicate clearly with your customers. Just to be clear, I am not discouraging you from working with your local store. as long as there is trust, mutual respect, and encouragement, it can be the best thing possible for the store, for your shop, and for your customers. Win, win, win. And now that I'm approaching retirement, I felt compelled to share this business side of growing a successful guitar tech business. I hope that this little talk has inspired you to continue elevating the art while you define and refine your own individual journeys, because they're all going to be slightly different. Like all the TechDeck customers around the globe, I made my money, and I continue to make my money using the TechDeck. Cheers. Let's get back to these repairs.